The baseball season is long, but a lot can happen in a week. A week ago, the Guardians were left for dead after losing to the Reds to start off their big road trip. They turned things around and took 3 or 4 in Detroit. In the process, also lost one of the most reliable starters. And then they came home to host the world champion Dodgers, and I got eaten by midges.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a Tuesday episode of Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. We cover your Cleveland Guardians every day, from the majors to the minors and everything in between the times where I'm not being eaten alive by bugs. Literally the whole time I was at the game, I was like this. It was like a weekend at Bernie's situation.
They don't eat you. They're not. It's not like mosquitoes. They just invade your space, right? They're just all over you.
They were attacking every which way. I felt lucky to get out of there alive. I learned that I am Jabba Chamberlain. I am not Fausto Carbona. But this is Locked On Guardians. We are here for you every day, and we appreciate all of our everydayers for tuning in. We appreciate all of our everydayers for letting us have a break on Memorial Day. I'm Justin Lada, one of your two co-hosts here on Locked On Guardians. I have been writing about the Guardians minor league system since 2007. You can find all my minor league analysis on the Guardians at the News Herald, the Morning Journal, and over on my Substack next year in Cleveland. And here 5 days a week with my friend and co-host hiding in his basement away from the midges, Jeff Ellis.
I got a brand new mouse. I am Jeff Ellis.
Midges?
No, it won't. My cats would like to. They try to eat all the bugs, luckily. But I am Jeff Ellis, as he said. I was one of the first people Locked On asked to come on and talk about baseball. Before that, I was a longtime draft and prospect analyst at Scout in 24/7. And recently, you've heard me a bunch on WTAM. So keep your ears. I almost said your ears and eyes, but nope, just your ears open for those. I'll try to be better about posting when they're going to happen. But yeah, if Dennis Maniloff is on, hey, you might hear me.
Yep, stay tuned for that, and I'll be on somewhere else later in the week. I'll get to that. On today's show, we'll get into Nick Enright making his debut. We'll talk about the Dodgers series, of course, and that disaster on Memorial Day. We'll talk about Ben Lively's injury and who is going to step up there. But first, we'll start with the 3 of 4 wins in Detroit. I said, Jeff, on Friday that I'd have been happy with taking 2 of 4. And then Tanner Bybee goes out and shuts out the Tigers, one of the hottest teams in baseball, averaging 5 runs a game, one of the best lineups in baseball. And he pitched the best game of his season on Thursday. We talked about that. And then Friday, Slade Ciccone goes out and shuts down the Tigers once again. They only scored 1 run in that game the first 2 days of that. I mean, that was literally a big turnaround. That road trip, I will say, obviously got off to an ugly start, right? Like the Red Series was not great. They didn't pitch well. They should have won Friday with the hit. Yeah, well, they didn't hit when the timing was right for the most part, but it was an ugly series overall. And then the rain kept things away in Minnesota. They split that one. They won a doubleheader game, which is always good for them. But then, yeah, going to Detroit, like I said, my expectations were 2 of 4, but they played really well. I mean, Jose continues to be on a heater. Kwan was much better. Tanner was great. Slade was great.
Santana was solid in all those games. He's been
until he got hurt. Yeah, and Luis Ortiz had a rough start, but he locked in and they came back and they came back and won that game. That was probably the most impressive one of all, because that one, Jose scores on a play at an infield hit in that game from Angel that he probably shouldn't have scored on. Like, I don't know. I mean, not many guys in baseball are scoring on that play to home, and only Jose is, but Jose's a heads up base runner, and thank God, tied that game, that got him to extras, and then they exploded offensively in the 10th inning, thankfully, and that was great because Clase gave up runs in the 10th inning. But when you're on the road, when you're on the road in extra innings, you have to score like at least 2 or 3 runs, because that you just assume the home team is going to score at least 1, so you have to get 2 or 3.
Yeah,
but I know they got ran over by the monster that is Tarek Skubal on Sunday, which I'm not really surprised by. They put out the B team lineup, and Tarek Skubal from pitch 1 looked like he was just all in on that game. I'm going to say this, though. I saw a lot of time. I don't want to take away from Skubal's great game. He pitched his butt off. Like, that was one of the best games I've ever seen pitched. It was a Maddox under with 13 strikeouts. It was literally the lowest pitch count ever for a 13 strikeout shutout in 9 innings in baseball history. Great game. But I saw people who were saying, Tarek's revenge, Skubal's revenge, Tiger's revenge. The Guardians won that series. They took 3 or 4, and they beat Tarek Skubal last year when it mattered in Game 5 of the ALDS. So, great game. Doesn't take away from how great he pitched and how great of a pitcher he is, but let's cool it on the revenge. The Guardians won that series, and they also beat him in the playoffs when it mattered most last year. And I'll take that every day of the week. You knew you were going to lose that game no matter what, really. I was planning on losing that game.
Yeah. One quick point before I talk about Saturday's game. I thought it was really interesting that the Tigers didn't get a hit after the 3rd inning until the 10th inning. That the bullpen really did its job, shut him down, pretty much completely, totally. And then in terms of that game on Sunday, like I know some people are like, "What's the deal with this lineup?" Well, first, Santana's hurt, so that's not ideal for this team because he's been their second best hitter for the month of May. But 2, they had played 6 games in 5 days. And I think it's smart to throw your worst lineup against Skubal because that's going to be the hardest game. That's the one you're least likely to win. This is the whole Chinese horse racing game theory thing that I've talked about before, where it's like, the theory behind why it's better to have your best starter in game 2 and your second best starter in game 3, that it actually sets you up to have an advantage in more games. It's the same idea here. Like, you want to have your best players out in the games that you have a higher percentage chance of winning. And guys need off days. Like, again, 6 games in 5 days is a lot. So, yeah, and after a night game and then to have an early morning game on Sunday, like Bo couldn't play. Like, let's be very honest. Like, no way. So that, and then Santana's injury made it worse. So for all the complaining about the lineup, guys, especially when you've condensed it down that much, they needed an off day. Jose was still out there. This is the problem with having a bad bench right now. Let's be very honest with it. Like, it is a bad bench. There's not a lot of great options because right field has been a mess because, Lane Thomas is struggled in his transition back. We were hoping maybe he would, bring some of the power that he had. Then again, everyone hit, like you and I could hit a home run in that stadium. Like, everyone hits home runs in Columbus's home stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Like, everyone, it's a notorious hitter's park. So, I think anyone who's really mad, I don't understand. Like, they took 3 out of 4. For all of us, that was a best outcome. Like, we were all like, oh, one, don't get swept, 2 games. But it's also, too, just the whole, like, the reports of their demise are greatly exaggerated. All the people who, still, like, I mean, we're harping negatively. We had someone in our comments talking about, like, Santana has been a bust of a sign. Like, on Sunday, someone was putting that into our comments. And then, a lot of the anger about, like, this or that. It's like, it is a long season. Patience. Like, I'm not going to sit here and sing the Guns N' Roses song, but that should be the theme to the Major League Baseball season. Just understand there's ups and downs, and you can't ride too high. You can't get too low. And that a team, there's a lot of fun things emerging on this team. Like, Angel has been better than I think you and I would have ever expected. I know he hasn't been as great in May, but he still seems to come up with some nice hits. Gabby, we'll get into the Dodgers game, like, ups and downs. There's a lot of ups and downs, but it's still a playoff team, and we're almost into June.
Yeah, Memorial Day's here, so that's kind of like your first checkpoint of the season. Although I would argue that used to be, I don't know how far back that adage goes. I'm sure it goes back quite a long ways. I wonder if it even predates the 3 division model. But now that you have all these playoff teams, like all the wild cards and 3 divisions and all this stuff, I wonder if, like, Memorial Day is no longer a good checkpoint because, like, yeah, it's the first time you can really, people say you check the standings, and that's fine. Like, you can do it whenever, but I don't know. There's all these playoff teams now, so I feel like it's changed a little bit where you're not really putting as much stock into
fire. Yeah.
It's not one of those things where you're like, wow, we've got a lot, And it depends on your expectations too. Like, well, and I want to talk about expectations in the 3rd segment too, and especially relating to this Dodgers series. But I guess it really depends on where your expectations are for the season, and some people have higher, some people have lower, and I think the Guardians, where they're at right now, like, is kind of not where I expect them to be at, to be honest, like that. But yeah, we have people who are like, Ortiz isn't good. Like, yeah, Ortiz had a rough first inning and not great when he put you behind the 8 ball like that, but he settled in after that, pitched really well. And like you said, didn't get a hit from, like, what, the 3rd to the 7th inning or the 8th
third
inning
to the
or something.
10th. No
3rd
hits
to the 10th. Yeah.
The Class A was the first hit after the 3rd inning.
Yeah. Who would have guessed that? Yeah. So yeah, he really settled in too. So yeah, I was hoping for 2 of 4 in Detroit. And they took 3, and you took the first 3. So, like you said, putting out your rest lineup on Sunday versus Skubal after you took 3 or 4. Now, if you had lost a couple in a row, at that point in Detroit. Maybe things are a little bit different. I don't know, but they didn't have to, so it was good. All right, we learned that Ben Lively is going to be out for the year. Since the last time we spoke, we'll talk about Slade Ciccone. We'll talk about the rotation. We'll talk about the impact of Ben Lively, and we'll get into the Dodgers series later in the show. We'll also talk about Nick Enright's debut that happened in Detroit. So lots to cover on a Tuesday episode of Locked On Guardians. Stick with us. And you want to stick with the place to get the reliable supplies that you need for the skilled traders. That is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order your products online. We know they have a great website. It's got so many resources for you. They got product info. It's going to help you get the job done right every single time. Their inventory is unmatched. Over 200,000 parts, 400 top brands. You're going to find exactly what you need. High quality parts delivered fast, coast to coast. If you need help with an order, they've got great expert support, industry leading service. You're always going to talk to a real person. No AI, no chat bots, none of that weird stuff. You're going to get on the phone. You're going to call Supply House, and you're going to talk to somebody who knows the parts. They know the business. And if you're looking for an extra edge, they have the Trade Master program that's free. And it's got perks like a dedicated phone line for your company, free shipping, discounts on all your orders. Thousands of skilled professionals are taking advantage, and it is your turn now. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering your plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. If you use our promo code SH5, you're going to get 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. Mr. Reliable, the king of options, will have to find some different options from now on, unfortunately for the Guardians. So Ben Lively, not only does he need Tommy John surgery, it also looks like he needs flexor tendon surgery as well.
That's
so
bad.
Yeah, it stinks. The Guardians say that the typical recovery time for these surgeries, I guess multiple surgeries, is that 12 to 16 months. So we're talking, that's return to play. That's him getting back on the mound. That's not even being back in the major league. So we're talking, he might miss next year, to be honest, depending on how this goes. Like, you're talking 2 arm surgeries for a guy who's a little older too. He's not a spring chicken.
34, right?
I don't know. He's in his 30s for sure. So he's going to miss it. You're not going to get back on the mound at best until next May. And then you're talking, if things don't go well, you're talking August, September.
Yeah. Which would be in of his age 34 year. He's 33.
Yeah. Which really stinks for a guy who,
for him,
has never hit. Yeah. He never really hit free agency. Like, I know he got taken off the roster by the Reds and the Phillies and all that, played in the KBO, came back, but he's never hit that big, free agent payday kind of thing. And not that he's ever going to make big money, but he's just a lot of club control because of a late debut, because of a lot of time overseas. And I don't know, I just really like Ben Lively's attitude on this team. Like, I think that's the biggest thing to me. Like, he's reliable every 5th day. Like, he goes out there and he throws 5 innings and allows 2 or 3 runs, maybe sometimes 6. And sometimes he gives up 4 runs, whatever. Sometimes he has a bad start, but on most days, you know what you're getting from Ben Lively. Like, you're going to get a quality start or close to it, and you're going to have a chance to win the game that he pitches, even if it's not like a sexy start. And he's not, doesn't have Gavin Williams stuff, doesn't have Tanner Bybee stuff, doesn't have Luis Ortiz's fastball, all that kind of stuff. But he gets the job done most times out. And he's reliable and allowed you to stash some depth in place of him. But I think most of all for Ben Lively, like, I feel bad for the guy, like we just talked about, like the age of his career.
That's first and foremost for me as well.
Yeah, like the age of his career and just the trajectory. And this is a pretty rough injury in terms of the 2 surgeries, but like his attitude in the clubhouse to me was the most valuable thing too, because he is just such an even keel guy. And I know that took years of him to figure out. Like, he was not always the most even keel guy. That was the biggest thing for him coming back from Korea, was like he had to learn to be a little more chill, and that's worked for him so well. But Tanner couldn't start the first game of the season because of food poisoning, and Ben Lively's down in Goodyear, going to meet the team in San Diego, and instead they call him and say, "Hey, can you get here in 24 hours and start the game?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." He gets there, throws a fine game, nothing, not great. They won the game though, which is good.
Solid. He was very solid.
Yeah, and he was just very, chill, and very even keel. And a long season, you need guys like that. And he's a guy who's just grown so much over his career and has gone through a lot of things that could be a very good mentor to other players who are trying to go through a lot of things and find balance and consistency and grow. And now he's going to be rehabbing a surgery in Arizona, and they're not going to have that. So to me, that's a threefold loss if you consider the fact they now have to dip into their depth. So it's not an insignificant loss considering what he's done, and people might look at the numbers and say no big deal, but I think it's a bigger loss than a lot of people think.
Yeah, a few quick just added points on it. One, a lot of people in our comments were asking like, "Oh, so he's a free agent at the end of the year, right?" No, they have their arbitration right. So Cleveland actually has him through 2028. So that's 4 more years of team control. Because the time he went over to Korea kind of split up his arbitration years. From what I've found online, well, this stinks in terms of like he's finally for the first time in his career. Last year's the first time he had over 80 or maybe over 90 innings, I should say, in a season in the big leagues. Thanks to his time in Korea, he has made about $7 million. So like this doesn't completely wreck him. So there is some solid earning throughout his career. And then I always got to bring up the fact back in 2010, Cleveland drafted him in the 26th round. They made a big run that year on him and Bobby Wall were the guys that they really tried to get. Unfortunately, they instead spent their money on Tony Dishler, Michael Goodnight, Alex Leveski, and Tyler Holt were the guys that they really kind of spent that money heavily on. 2010 was the last year before 2011 was the last year before the slot system went in. So 2010, 2011, Cleveland were top 5 spending teams. They finally became kind of that group. Didn't get him in, but eventually did get their man. We were all kind of, I think we got to admit, we were ambivalent when he was added, but it's like, the extension, everything else. He's just a solid, steady, reliable guy. And we talked about pitching depth. The Guardians' whole offseason was about pitching depth and adding pitching depth because you never know what's going to happen. And that's what we're seeing here. Like, none of us expected Ben Lively of all guys. Like, if we were to make a betting pool on who was going to require, a big arm surgery, I don't think anyone's really taken Ben Lively. He would have been long odds. But that's why this organization had such a focus on pitching depth. I know one of our listeners put down a Cedric Mullins trade in one of the comments, and I had to be like, no, they wouldn't do that because they're not going to trade the depth. Like, they don't have enough pitching depth. They're not going to trade any of their pitching depth. Like, we can just move on from that idea because they need that. Every team in baseball needs it, and every team in baseball could use the king of options, Ben Lively. Again, I agree with you 100%. My first thought goes out to him because he had to go to Korea. He had to follow a different path. And then last year, 151 innings. I mean, his entire major league career was 100, and if I did quick math right, like about 200 innings before last year. So yeah, just stinks for him. Like you said, there's a good chance his age 34 year isn't going to be worthwhile because command and control don't come back right away after Tommy John. So we're probably looking at age 35 when he is back and able to help this team, because he's also not a guy who positions great to be a reliever when he does come back, and it's going to be a slow build up that late in the year. So yeah, it stinks for Ben. It stinks for the team. I mean, it's a lose-lose in all regards.
It is. That's a good point you made too about the depth thing. Like, obviously you have to plan for injuries. You can't predict injuries, but you have to plan for them.
Yeah.
And look where we are on May 27th. Like, Ben Lively's down and Tristan McKenzie's off the roster. He started here, right? Like,
and nobody wanted him. Like, he's not even in the minors. He's out in the complex league.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later in the week. Those two getting back on the mound, him and Shane Bieber, which is good. So Slade Ciccone is going to have to fill in for the short term here. I shouldn't say short term. Like, Bieber is just throwing his first inning this week to live batters in Arizona for the first time since last year against Seattle, when he finally realized he needed Tommy John. So he's still a ways away. So yeah, it's Slade Ciccone for the time being, and you're absolutely right. Like, going out and would you like to have Josh Taylor in this lineup? Absolutely. I think a lot of teams want Josh Taylor. I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but that trade wasn't about 2025. I know a lot of people wanted the trade to be about 2025, and I understand people saying, like, was there a way you could get him without trading Josh Taylor? Probably not. I don't think there was, and that would be great. Like, I'm not saying you couldn't have like gone out. Like, could you have just been okay with Luis Ortiz? Probably not, because you need it. Like, Slade Ciccone's here now, and they needed this depth. But imagine this season where you don't have Ortiz and Ciccone in this rotation. Like, they needed that pitching depth very badly. Not just depth. They needed to improve the rotation, period. And it's still not in a great place. I know you said last week you were happier with it now than you were a year ago, and I agree with that. but there's still a lot of ups and downs. Like Luis Ortiz didn't have a great first thing in Detroit. He reined it in, thank God. Gavin Williams, not good again against Detroit. We sung his praises last week and said, hey, he's turning a corner, and then he goes out against the Dodgers. And maybe that's not a great barometer because the Dodgers are tough. We'll talk about that next. But like, he didn't have a great start. Logan Allen is, scuffled in his start against the Tigers too. And there's issues there, but like, they added Beaver back. They went out and got John Means, Saccone, and like Luis Ortiz. Like, they needed every single one of those guys. And I think all those guys, to me, are going to make starts this year for them. I think, and there's Parker Messick, Doug Nikhazy's pitch. Like, they're going to need everybody.
It's going to be in AAA hopefully sooner rather than later. Like, you need every little bit of that depth because, if you're very honest with where the team's going, what's setting up, it's like you don't have that consistency at all.
They don't. No, they don't. And yeah, so you can't predict. I mean, you can't predict injuries, but you have to plan for them. And that's why they made pitching a priority this offseason, because it wasn't where it should have been the last couple of years, and they needed to get back to that. And they're still trying to get back to that, honestly. Like, they're not quite all the way there yet. So we'll talk about that next. Talk about Gavin Williams' start. We'll talk about the Dodgers series, how to look at it. We'll talk about Nick Enright's journey on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians.
Epicor is one of our sponsors today, one of the fantastic sponsors on the show. I love Epicor. It is a company that has been supporting this show, so you should love them too. And they're going to help you out with, systems for your business. So every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the All-Stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics, it's not an easy thing. They make it easier. Responding to price changes, it's a crazy world right now in price changes. Epicor is going to make it easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global vision, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you do need to make the most of every hardworking minute. We all do. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success with www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com.
All right, I'm still shaking off the bugs from the Dodgers game.
Off.
That was
shake it off.
Yeah, shake it off. Okay, yeah. Someone needed to.
Put some ice on it.
The midges were not helping the Guardians in this one. Here's another brutal reminder of where we're at too. We were in the bleachers, we were trying to hide from all the midges, and there were some guys behind us, and we're talking about it, and I brought up the bug game from 2007, and the people behind me were like, whoa, they didn't know anything about that, or they were talking about bug spray, and I was like, don't use bug spray, we know it makes it worse. He's like, oh really? And I was like, yeah, didn't you watch the 2007 bug game? He's like, I was born in 2007. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so I had to explain to him the bug game in 2007. I comment or find us on social media, or even email the show at loguardianshow@gmail.com. If you were born after or didn't watch the bug game because you weren't of a certain age to watch that, but you still know what it is. So let us know if you actually know what that is, even if you maybe didn't watch it live or you weren't quite old enough to remember it, but you still know what it is. I thought that was like a Cleveland baseball lore. I really did. But maybe I'm just showing my age there. But that was a little fun, little reminder of things. Not only was I getting attacked by bugs, I was getting attacked by how old I am. So that's a lot of fun.
I think it just kind of faded because that's the Boston Red Sox implosion series. Like if they'd gone to the World Series, I think the midge game would stick more but I think you had to be there. Like if you didn't watch it, if you're too young, I bet it's not a thing at all.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let us know if you were of a certain age and you weren't old enough to remember, but you know what it is. The bugs didn't help the Guardians out though on Memorial Day. They were up in the bleachers harassing the rest of us. I didn't really see it have any effect on the field. Maybe that's why Gavin Williams walked 6 batters. I don't know. Maybe it was. Gavin Williams is awful.
Walks. Number 2 team in baseball in walks. Like they just walk a ton. They're gonna with that shrinking strike zone, and him being a nibbler is a bad combination.
I don't even think Gavin's a nibbler. I just think he doesn't know where the ball is going. Like, I'm wearing my Wild Thing glasses. If you're watching on YouTube, like that was Gavin. someone better teach the kid control before he kills somebody or he gets the Guardians killed. Like
he's always hanging out on the edges. He's always hanging out on those edges.
I don't think that's nibbling. I just think he doesn't know where the ball is going. He doesn't have control or command. And we were sitting in the bleachers, and I was like, please, dear God, don't throw a first pitch fastball. What does he do? He throws a first pitch fastball, and Shohei Ohtani hits it 350
It was a sweeper, feet. According to Baseball Savant.
It was not a sweeper.
It was an inside sweeper, inside in on the hands, according to Savant. Just saying.
Really?
The tech said it was a sweeper inside on the hands.
I think it got that one wrong because I was at the park, and no, it didn't. I'm looking at it right now. It says fastball on Savant.
Did they change? Maybe they changed it. Sometimes they do that.
So it was a 96 mile an hour fastball.
No. Okay.
And if
Earlier
you go back and look at it, if you go back and look at it, the actual video too, Bo Naylor set up way outside, and he missed it way inside and low and right into Ohtani's nitro zone, and he crushed it. Not only was it a bad first pitch, it was a bad location. That was just the story of Gavin Williams' night. I know he, came back and struck out Ohtani later and whatever. I don't know. I'm just tired of the inconsistency with Gavin Williams. Like, I'm tired of waiting. I know you talked about patience and development's not linear, and he's still sort of young in terms of his pitching experience and the pros and the major leagues. But like, it's so hard because we expect him to be like the top of the rotation guy. He's got the stuff. Stuff Plus says the fastball is great. Stuff Plus says the curve.
He can't put guys away. I don't think.
I know we talked about this. I know the models all like him. They do. The models do. The statistical models. I don't know about the real models of the world. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But the models do like him. I think the stuff is there. We talked about this before. Like, he just hasn't put it together. But it's just so frustrating that he teased us with. We were all on the bandwagon of spring training where he was going to be this breakout starter and he was going to help anchor the rotation. And maybe there's still a lot of growth. Like, I know he's got a four seam that's getting crushed this year, and he's introducing a sinker, and he's throwing a sweeper instead of a slider now, and he's got the cutter, and he has a curveball and all this other stuff. So I know, like, there's still growing pains for him. Like, he's still learning, so you have to be patient. But it's like, it's frustrating at the same time because I think we all know the potential of the ceiling is so good, but he's just not getting there. Like, I think that's the frustrating part here.
I don't think the ceiling's that good. I think that's what we have to come to the conclusion with on him. That, like,
it might not be. You're right.
All the talk with everything, it's like it's a mediocre fastball. The curveball used to be his best pitch. Now it's not much. He's got to work the sweeper in on the hands or out on the zone, and he's not a command or a control guy. Like, he's probably a 40 command, maybe like 50 control. Like, it just, he doesn't hit a spot. Like, he's a
maybe he's a reliever. Maybe he's a reliever.
I think he's a back end starter. Like, if he had 15 swings and misses, which is great, but like, he never gets a swing and miss when it's two strikes. Was it they had 11 in the inning he finally left, like 11 foul balls with two strikes. Like, he doesn't, that curveball used to be a put away pitch. Now he just doesn't have it. I don't know if he has a single plus offering. And I think that's what we're seeing. That's why he's nibbling. That's why he's trying to hit the outside corner with that sweeper or hit the inside.
I don't think it's nibbling. I don't think it's nibbling. I just don't think he has command or control. I think if he had command or control of the stuff, he'd be in the zone and just say, here, hit it. But he doesn't have command or control. So and he may never have it. I do think the potential is there. Like, I think the ceiling is there. I think the realistic thing is he's just not going to hit it. Like, he's not going to get there. So you're right. He's a back end starter because he just can't harness the stuff. He has a
poor fastball. He has a legitimately poor fastball. And like, that was supposed to be a plus pitch. He doesn't have a plus offering. I don't think the ceiling's there. There's not a plus offering in that bag. There's not a go-to swing and miss pitch.
The models and statistics disagree with
you. They don't anymore. Like, and that's why spring training has such little value relative to all things. Like, it's like he's a back end starter. It's plain and simply, he's a back end starter.
Maybe. As far as this Dodger series is concerned, as we get out of here on the show, I know it's going to sound defeatist, and someone's going to say, "Well, that's a loser mentality." Blah blah blah. I got to be honest. Like, I'm going to be frustrated. It's going to stink if the Dodgers come in here and sweep them and undo all the work they did over the weekend against Detroit. The Dodgers on another level. I don't expect the Guardians to win the World Series this year. Let's be honest about that. Like, I don't expect that to happen. My expectations for this team are to make the playoffs and win a series and see what happens from there. Like that's where I see this team going at best. If anything else happens beyond that, that's great. So when I talk about the Dodgers, and I know people are saying, "Wow, that's a really low bar. You guys are carrying the weight for ownership or excusing whatever." Fine, you want to say it? That's fine. I don't care. I know where this team is realistically, and they are not a World Series contending team. And maybe that's going to turn some people off, and that's fine if that's how you feel. If you're the only team in baseball this year, to me, that is championship or bust, are the Dodgers. If they don't win a championship again this year, it is a legitimately disappointing season for the Dodgers because they have the biggest payroll. They've collected all these stars, blah, blah, blah. I can't be championship or bust with this team. Otherwise, I'll drive myself nuts and be miserable. So if the Dodgers do sweep them, I'll be disappointed. I'll be bummed. It'll stink for a couple days, but you want to know what? I as long as this team makes the playoffs and makes a little bit of noise in the playoffs, that's where my expectations are.
We talked about how brutal this 10-game stretch is. If they win one game, they'll go 5-9 on this 10-game stretch. So it is, Dustin
5-9 in 10 games. How does that math?
They will have won 5 out of 9. And they will have lost 4 because they would lose 1 to the Tigers, 1 to the Twins.
You said 5. You said 5-9 in 10 games.
5 out of 9.
That doesn't math
because they didn't play the 10th game because they got the rain.
That's right.
So they ended up with 9 games. So, but and you got Kershaw who hasn't pitched much this year, and you do have Dustin May who's not pitched much, and so I feel like my expectation, or I guess May has pitched, but maybe it just hasn't gone well this year. I want to say, or maybe it's been okay. But I feel like
a guy with great stuff and no results.
I want one to give them 5 out of the last 9.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's fair enough. Nick Enright, I wish we had more time to talk about it, and we can talk about Nick Enright a little bit more tomorrow. But congrats to him and his family. He got into the game over the weekend in Detroit. Yeah, he pitched great. On top of that, came back from cancer and still is on the way to finishing off treatment and stuff, while still trying to play Major League Baseball and make his debut. He makes his debut on Sunday. Pitches great, and just couldn't be more elated for that guy and for the family, and wishing all good things for them. All right, we're out of here on this episode of Locked On Guardians. Thanks for tuning in. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll talk Guardians Dodgers Game 2. It's Tanner Bybee and Dustin May, 2 guys with fun stuff. Hopefully the offense shows up. We'll talk about the plan for second base the rest of the year this week. We'll talk about Beaver McKenzie being back on the mound in Arizona. We'll go around the farm, talk about the farm system, and we'll also talk about what kind of trade assets the Guardians will have if they want to be buyers at the deadline this year. That's all coming up this week on Locked On Guardians.
And we'll discuss if there's any sellers at all. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. Do your part. Hit that little bell so you get alerted no matter what. Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.